Hey everybody, welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be doing my Valorant agents tier list. This will be for patch 9.10, I believe. The patch is officially. It's the one that just came out the other day as of uploading this, so yeah, should be pretty recent. Obviously, there's neon changes on the horizon. I'd assume some of these other agents could get changed, maybe like some sky buffs in there, harbor buffs, even some stuff like that. Maybe some small tweaks to other agents. I think could be pretty decent, along with that neon nerf. But I don't know. Obviously at the end of the video, let me know what you guys think of the both of the tier list and maybe what agent changes you want to see to certain ones. I do think some definitely need ones more than others, and we will get into that in this video. So if you guys enjoy, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Really helps me out. Go follow me on Twitter. I tweet out about most of my videos pretty much like before I even record them. I'll be like, oh yeah, this video is coming tomorrow or whatever. Um, and yeah, so go check all that out, and I'll see you guys in the next one, or not in the next one. I'll see you guys in like a half second when I start recording the next tier. Like I don't know, man. Let's get right into it. All right, so we'll start with the few agents in the D tier. There's not too many, but I think we do need to talk about them. And by the way, I should have mentioned this in the intro, but this list is strictly for pro play, and I think that will be a big thing with this first agent with Sage. I think she is a solid agent in ranked. I don't think she's anything like incredible, but in pro play, there's really no reason to play her on like 99% of maps. Like you could say maybe sometimes on bind, she's okay, and on icebox, but icebox isn't in the pool right now, so like you're not really gonna do too much of that. Um, I mean some teams have played around with her on sunset a little bit. She's been okay. Ascent, I think you can play her, but like just play the normal comp at that point. And like other than that, I mean like split in like 2 years ago, but like I don't know, like a lot of these Sage comps are like years old. I don't really think this like style of agent works too much anymore. I think you need some other kind of like firepower from the agent, I guess, rather than just the slow orbs and the heal, which is really all you get with Sage. Then for the other agent, all right, the other agent of four that I have in this D tier, I actually have Clove, which I think is the biggest like switch of agents for ranked and pro play. Um, I'm a little bit higher on Clove than I was when they came out. Um, I'm still not very high, like at all. Like if you go to the Red Bull home ground, just like the main event specifically, I'm not really going to look at too many other stats. Clove didn't get picked once. If you add the international play-ins, did they get played at all? Nope. Really, they literally only got played in the play-ins from APAC and NA. I guess international was EMEA. So I guess you can argue. I mean that doesn't even matter. Like they just aren't a good agent. Like you can play them on bind, but the smokes don't last long enough comparatively to other agents. The rest of the kit is actually just garbage in pro play. Like the alt sucks. Like probably one of the worst alts in pro play. The heal sucks in pro play. Like healing abilities, other than like sky heal, really aren't really that great in pro play because like just the way the game is played. Like in ranked, you can get a kill, heal back up, and then take another 1v1. And that's kind of what ranked is built off of. So it's a lot better in ranked, but in pro play, not so much. And then the metal, I actually think is a little bit underrated. You can use it to do like some nice combos with the raised nade, but other than that, I don't really see Clove being played too much. I think some you could see some like more like aggressive like dualisty smokes players play some Clove. You could also see like Paper Rex play a little bit of it, but that'd be really the only pick rates of Clove that I really expect going into 2025. Then next up we have Harbor. I don't think that's too much of a surprise here. Really, again, only an agent that's really played on Icebox. Uh, Hold on, let me add all just so I can see the all the maps on this. Um, like he used to get played on Haven a little bit more. Bind as well. I think those are two maps where you can play him. Maybe he'll come back into the meta more on Pearl, but that's really your only hope for Harbor right now. I think you could argue that Harbor is even lower than Clove, like right here and here. But I genuinely think that Harbor is that like a Harbor comp is probably the best comp on Icebox, even though it's not in the pool. I still think Harbor should be a little bit above Clove because I think he has more uses. And you could argue that maybe the Viper Harbor comp will be the best on Pearl as well. Then last up here in the D tier, we have Reyna, who another agent that is only really good on Icebox. Like you're not really going to play her anywhere else. Paper X will play her a little bit, kind of like Clove, but outside of that, again, had an even lower percent pick rate in the Red Bull home ground. Like she got played 25% of the time on Icebox and 10% of the time on Abyss, I believe this is, right? Yes, Abyss. So that equaled out to a 2% pick rate when all the other maps are zero. So like again, just not a great agent. Doesn't really give you too much like cohesion in a team. It's just kind of run around and kill people, which for some duelist players I think was pretty good on Icebox last year, but again, just not in the pool. And I still think with Icebox in the pool, Reyna would be D tier. You only have one map that she's even playable on compared to maybe playing some other alternatives even on that map with Jet and Omen and stuff like that. I just think are potentially better. Then we'll move on to C tier now. So we'll start the C tier with Vise, the newest agent in the game, and I think typically these newer agents aren't very good when they come out. I think Vise definitely has one of the best chances out of some of these newer agents, like between Vise, Clove, Harbor, maybe not Harbor, because he's not new enough. Like when Gecko came out, when Deadlock came out, agents like that. Like I think when ISO came out, I guess. Like I think Vise definitely has the best chance, has the best role in this meta. I think this C tier is going to be a lot of agents that can maybe be played like in some niche comps, but other than that, like you're not really seeing too much of them in these main comps. And I think another agent that kind of maybe like in a different way fits that like all right, okay, wait. We're not going to move off Vice yet. I haven't really talked about her kit at all. Vice agent abilities. Let's have them all in front of me. So you have the nade, like the razor vine thing. I don't think it's very good. It only does damage when players move in it, which really stops floods, I think, which is very good. But other than that, like, I mean, you're not using it as like an actual molly to stop people from like or like to kill somebody, I guess, to stop people from like diffusing and stuff. I think it's not very good at that, obviously. So it's it's okay. I think it's an okay ability. The wall I think is pretty solid. It's pretty easy to bait and like will only really get you like one kill. Like Cypher trips could get you multiple within a round. Killjoy mollies again could do a shit ton of damage. It's really only going to get you one v1 fight against a Neon, which is probably the best agent in the game right now. I don't think that's really any spoilers, but like it locks you into a fight with a Neon that can kind of move around and do some stuff. Like it's not the best ability in the game, but it is actually pretty solid. It is very strong at locking off the rest of the team behind the Neon, which is still very good. The arc rose, I don't know fully whether I think it's great or not. I think it's definitely a good ability with the info. Like having a regeneratable info flash, uh, I mean, is I don't think there's any other agent in the game like that right now. So I think that is good. I think the ult is solid. I don't think the radius is too good. Like it's literally from where you're standing and you can't like shoot it forward. Like if the radius of the circle behind you could just go forward, like and you could just put the circle on the site like a harbor ult more so, I think the ult would actually be really strong, but it's kind of like in a spot right now. So I think right now, Vise should just be in the C tier just to kind of play it safe. This will be an agent that is maybe played more as like a double sentinel agent, like kind of like how Deadlock was played a bit last year. Then in C tier, we also have Chamber, who I think with the buffs is actually very viable. And on maps like Bind, when you have a really strong Chamber player, I think you should be playing that. Uh, Maybe on like Sunset with the new changes, you could see him a little bit. Maybe some Abyss, maybe some Pearl, maybe some Haven even, honestly. Maps like that, I think. I mean, Split. He got played a little bit last year by teams like Foot. I think you could see some play from Chamber. Everybody knows kind of how Chamber works. You got the TP, you got the Headhunters, you got the trip, which I mean the global. I mean the more global trip, like it's obviously not global, but it's like the a lot bigger range. I think is a huge deal for him. Maybe even bigger than the TP range. I don't know about that. I think that's a little far with that statement, but like still very very good. Then I think we'll put Deadlock. I kind of want to put our next agent first, but I'm gonna talk about Deadlock first. I think very similarly to Vise plays in that very similar role as that second Sentinel next to maybe Cypher, and then like I think the wall is potentially a little bit worse, maybe if you were to compare it. But I think the Deadlock Gravnet is a lot better. I think when you're talking about like the firepower that I talked about with Sage, the Gravnet and the stuns are just so much better. And I think the Gravnet's better than the net from Buys, and I think the stuns are probably better than the Arc Rose, but it's kind of like eh. Like two just really, really, really good agents in that specific role. It's just that role is going to be a little bit more niche um, to only maybe maps like Bind and Ascent, where they get played a little bit. I think you could see some of it on Pearl. I've been playing around with that in Premiere. It's really fun to play. Um, I won't expose the comp because I do kind of want to make a video about it, but I need to like actually have more success playing the comp. We played really well in a scrim with it, and then got shit on in matches. I'll just say that. But yeah, there's reasons that we have shit on the matches, but I won't dive deep into that in this video at least. And then we'll move on to our last agent, our first initiator. It'll be Sky, and I think some people, maybe if you haven't been paying a ton of attention, this will be a little bit surprising for some people. But Sky has dipped under a 50% pick rate on Bind. No longer one of those like really, really like meta pick agents on that map. And then like when you look at all of the play-ins and everything like that for Red Bull Homeground, like has a 4% pick rate on Ascent, 10 on Pearl. I'm assuming that's still from playing like Viper Harbor comps, and then 20 on Split, which I think she is definitely still really good on Bind and Split. Very playable. I even think she probably should be played a bit more on Split than this. I think that's overdoing it a little bit. But yeah, I think just the lack of abilities you get with Sky is just really unfortunate. Like, dude, she didn't get picked on a map other than Bind in like the whole like main event for Red Bull Homeground, which is just insane with where we were last year with this agent. So I think Sky could definitely use some buffs. I think like everybody in D tier, I think could use some buffs. I think these C tier agents are really strong in their roles. So I think if you buff them too much, uh, I mean, you can even buff them at all, and I think they could become overpowered. I don't really see this like style of agent getting out of this tier. So I think Sky definitely could, but the other ones I don't think should be buffed too much. Even though I do have Sky at the top, I think there's definitely some reasoning for and against uh, buffing Sky. Obviously, like what do you really buff? I think you could maybe bring back the old Sky Dog. I think Sadak suggested that. Maybe make some utility a little bit cheaper. Maybe make the dog go a little bit faster. I kind of like that, just to kind of maybe make Sky a little bit of a faster agent rather than just like the slow getting the mid round info with the flashes, blah blah blah. I think you should be able to go like, all right, we're gonna pop this with the Sky Dog, pop flash around corners with Sky, stuff like that. Maybe they could go into that direction with her, but I don't know. Let me know what you guys think about Sky and if if and how they should buff her. But yeah, moving on to B tier now. All right, so this tier will be a little bit bigger, but I do actually enjoy the state of the game that we're at right now, where we only really have like 4 agents in each of these bottom tiers. I think every other agent in the game does have a decent role and is pretty good. So we'll start with the newly buffed agent, the one that everybody's really going to be talking about, Phoenix. And I think these new changes are very strong. I mean, very, very good. I think it makes Phoenix into a really like playable agent. I think I was pretty high on where Phoenix was before comparatively to other people. Like I thought he should be played on Pearl most of the time. That'll give you a little bit of insight to our Pearl comp as well. Um, like you could do it either as a solo duelist or double duelist. I think double duelist definitely is better with Phoenix, but you can play him solo on that map. I think the other maps though are really in jeopardy. Not in jeopardy, I guess, like not the greatest, but I think with this new buff, I think you are able to play him on some other maps. Maybe like if you want to run a double duelist on Haven or Ascent, I think he could be pretty good there. But that's really it, honestly. Maybe Sunset. I don't know. Uh, I think you're kind of grasping at straws there with those. I mean, obviously he has the 6 point ult. Maybe Fracture could be good if the 4 orb stays, if they don't change too much about that. Um, I don't know. Like, me, I think I'm convincing myself to move him down to C. I think these changes are really strong and he's a really good agent. I just don't think he fits into a lot of comps, I think is the issue. Like you'd have to run double duelist on most maps with him. And I just don't think that's the point in the meta that we're at right now. Um, but yeah, I do really like the changes and I do think he is a valuable agent. I can't see him picked on enough maps to justify putting him in B tier. And I think after explaining that, I am gonna put ISO in C tier as well. Except no, I think he will be actually picked on Haven a lot, and I think I could see him being played on other maps like maybe Bind, maybe a little bit of Pearl. I think Icebox he's good on, obviously not in the pool. Um, I mean, I could see teams playing him on a Fracture if a team could find where to fit him into that comp. I think the vulnerable is going to be really strong on that map if you play like ISO Rays or something like that. I think that could be a really good combo. Um, but yeah, I think he's really good. Like in that Fnatic comp on Haven, I think that should be the meta comp on that map. Honestly, uh, yeah, I don't think it's like by far like the only comp you can pick like on Ascent maybe, but it is definitely, in my opinion, the meta comp on that map. So yeah, just a very strong agent with the shield right now. I think it's a really, really, really strong ability. I think the rest of the kit could use some work, but I don't think they should change any of the rest of it. I think he'd be kind of OP if they changed any of the rest of his kit. Then we'll have our first, I mean, I was gonna say our first smoker, but we have Clove as our first dome smoker. But our first like real smokes agent, I think, honestly, and Brimstone, who I mean, he's picked Unbind. He's really strong on Bind, like really, really strong on Bind. Rest of the map's not so much, but I, I mean, like you see Brimstone, he's a B tier agent. Like I don't really think I need to explain that too much if you watch and play the game. Like I think he just belongs in B tier. I think that's just where he goes. Then I'm gonna put Fade in B tier next. I think a lot of this tier, like this B tier, is just gonna be agents that like similar to C tier in a way, just like in a bit better and like being able to be played across more comps, but like agents that are solid and like okay, I guess. That when put in specific comps can be really really strong. So I mean, agents like Fade when you play like I don't know, like you can. Like when Sen plays Fade, she looks really good. I don't really think too many other teams really play Fade, honestly. Uh, I guess like on Sunset, she got quite a bit of play. I guess I mean only one game of Sunset was even played at Red Bull, so not a huge sample size on that. But like Split, she's really good. Oh yeah, Bind, bro. What the fuck am I talking about? She's amazing on Bind. Haven, I think she's good on. Still, I think Sova's just a lot better though. We'll get to that later. I think you can play her on Pearl. I think you can play her on Ascent. Again, I think Sova's just better on those maps though. So I don't know. Fate, I think, is in a really good spot now. Right now, I think they really shouldn't change too much. Maybe a small buff to some stuff, but I think there should be changes to other agents first before Fade gets any kind of buff in this initiator role, where I think she still is. Honestly, as I've said, and putting her in B tier kind of shows very good. Then next up, we have an agent I think that pairs really well with Fade and Yoru, where you get the like Fade ult out on the site. Yoru can TP behind somebody, they don't hear him, he just shoots them in the face, right? Um, just an agent that a lot of people for a long time have been saying, "Oh my god, he's so overpowered." I don't know why teams don't play him more, which isn't true. Like if he was overpowered, teams would be playing him more. That's just how it works. But like he's just not like a good solo duelist because like in theory you could TP in for free, but like when there's people playing like close angles and stuff, they just watch the TP go by, you TP in and you shoot them in the face, and then the rest of your exec is just done. Uh, Not too much to say about that, honestly. But I do think when you play Yoru in like double duelist comps and stuff like that, he's very strong. You can play him on like Abyss, I think solo a little bit, but I think again, kind of similar to Phoenix, he pairs better with a duelist next to him. Bind, same deal. More so leaning to the better with a duelist next to him. Same thing on Haven. It doesn't even have to be a movement duelist with him. Just ISO next to him is really good. And I think you can kind of like play him a little bit on some other maps. Like teams have tried that like Deadlock Cipher Ascent comp with him and found some success. I still kind of like Jet a little bit better in that, but I'm not gonna nitpick teams playing that. I think it's fine. Um, and yeah, I just think he's pretty solid. I'm not gonna go on this rant about how teams should play him more because he's overpowered, because he's just not. Um, then this might be a hot take, but with this new patch, I'm gonna put Omen in B tier. I think a lot of his uniqueness and a lot of the reason that he was super highly picked was his one way ability. And now having that gone, I think is going to kind of tank his pick rate. I still think he'll probably be the smoke of choice on like maps like Split, Sunset, maybe even. I think he could still find a little bit of play on Bind, but I think like that Showers one way was really good. I still think he'll probably be the pick on Haven, like maybe like 60-40 with Astra, but I think a lot more stuff will be going in towards Astra's favor. I mean, when Lotus comes back, I still think Omen. I think Omen would still be my smoke of choice on that map, but it's not like 100% anymore like it was maybe before the Astra buffs, and now before these nerfs, where I think the Astra buffs kind of got it more towards like 65-35 ish, and I think now these buffs make it more maybe like 60-40 Astra instead of 65-35 Omen. um, if that makes sense. So it kind of like flips it in a different direction, but maybe a little bit less favored towards Astra than it was favored towards Omen before. So the Flash is still really good. I still think the TPs are good. But the rest of Omen's kit, I mean, like the smokes, I think aren't too different from Brims and Astras and agents like that anymore. Uh, I think Astras are a little bit bigger, but they last a little bit shorter. So whichever one like you really prefer there with those two. Brims obviously last longer, but they're not like hollow in the middle. And he doesn't have the regeneratable smokes. Like Omen still having the regen smokes is still very good, and he can still do some basic one ways, but everybody can do those. So It doesn't really change it. All right, now on to the biggest tier, where we have A tier. And I think all these agents are just really good agents. Like, you can play them on most of the maps in the pool and get away with it. And yeah, I mean, we'll start with it with Jet, agent that has been in these top two tiers for, I mean, as long as the game has existed. Maybe there was that little dip in like the Chamber meta where she just wasn't as meta because Chamber was just kind of a better option than her. But man, I mean, she's still, I mean, you have the dash, you have the the dash, like that's really all you need. You have a free weapon on some eco rounds and stuff like that with the knives. Like, I don't know, she's just really good on maps like Ascent, Haven, Pearl, Abyss. You can play her on Split. You can play her on Sunset. You can play her on Bind. I don't think Bind as much. I think she shouldn't be played at all on Bind. Um, but like, I don't know. I mean, she had a 0% pick rate on Haven, which I think is a little bit insane. Like, if you have somebody who's really, really good on Jet, I think you should still be playing Jet instead of Neon on Haven. But that's, I mean, if you want to play Neon, just play Neon, obviously. But uh, I don't know. I think Jet's still in a really good spot. I think she's just kind of her pick rate's going to be down a little bit right now because Neon's so unbelievably broken and good on all of the Jet maps specifically. So you're going to have some kind of like 50-50s there. Um, and some maps where Neon just completely takes over instead of Jet. So then I think, I mean, Jet is pretty clearly at the bottom of this A tier, but like, honestly, I didn't even consider dropping Jet down from A. Like, I think she should just sit at the bottom of this tier and that'd be it. But then next up we have Killjoy, which I think some people might be kind of against. You said a 24% pick rate for Red Bull Homeground. I'm just looking at the main event stuff. Played quite a bit on Pearl, 67%, 100% of the time on Ascent, a little bit on Haven, and that was it. I think with the new Cypher trip changes, I think you could see a lot more Killjoy, especially like comparatively to um, like Sunset. I think you can play her now. I mean, I always thought Killjoy was like pretty decent on Sunset. It was just like Cypher was so goddamn good that it didn't matter. I still think Cypher will be played a lot there. I think he'll be played a lot on Split. We'll talk about him soon, anyways. But like Ascent, Pearl, Abyss, and Haven, I think Killjoy is playable and even like really good on some of those maps where she has not gotten any play, like Abyss. I still think Abyss, you could probably just get away with no Senti rather than Killjoy, but if you want to play one, I almost think Killjoy is better on that map right now, which is kind of crazy. But I think we'll just put Cypher here. There is an agent in between Cypher and Killjoy, but we'll talk about him right next to Killjoy, just because I still think with the like small trip nerf, I think he still should be a little bit better than Killjoy. Like you can play him on Ascent, you can play him on Pearl, you can play him on Abyss, you can play him on Bind, you can play him on Haven, you can play him on Split, and you should play him on Sunset. Like he should be like 100% on Sunset, like 80% on Split, like 40% Ascent. Pearl, I think you could again say like maybe 30% on Pearl, maybe I don't know. Uh, I think he should be a little bit lower on Abyss, but like he will end up being around like probably. I mean, he was 17%. I mean, there was only 19 maps played. There was only 3 maps of Abyss played, so he was only picked once probably in this 17%. But still, like I still think he will end up being probably one of the more played Sentinels on that map, um, at least comparatively. And Bind, he's the best Sentinel on that map, honestly. Like you play him in that double Sentinel comp, you even play him solo Sentinel, he's really good. And then I think Haven, still he should be the highest just because between him and I mean like between having like some really really good trips on that map, Neon being so meta right now, Jet ending up being like the alternative for that. Uh, I do think you can even argue that like Sova and Breach being super meta can kind of conflict with that. Maybe being able to shock his trips and stuff like that. But you can also shock and aftershock the Killjoy util, so it doesn't really change too much. Um, but yeah, I mean, just a really strong agent right now. I think the ult is also kind of underrated. Just the whole kit, very strong on attack and on defense. I think he is definitely the better attacking sentinel as well, which I think really is what separates him from Killjoy. Um, then moving on to Raze, who I have between Killjoy and Cypher. I could have talked about her with Jet, but I do think she is pretty different. Like, I think there is room to like have her as a niche pick on Haven. Like, it'd be like 5-10% on the whole year or something like that. Should be played every single game on Bind, no doubts about it. Abyss, no, not at all. Pearl, I mean, maybe like once the whole year. I think a team might play her. Ascent, same thing, but probably no. Split, 100% pick her every time. And I think Sunset, when Neon gets nerfed, I think Raze will be played maybe a little bit instead of Neon. Like, I mean, everybody knows how good Raze is, kind of similar to when we talked about Brim, and I mean, when we just talked about Cypher. Like, there's not really a ton to say about Raze. She's just a pretty good agent, has the satchel movement that's still pretty good. I think you could maybe tweak some of her abilities to feel a little bit better rather than like actually be a little bit better. I think that's like some quality of life changes to Raze rather than like actual buffs. I think you could make, but other than that, I don't know. I wouldn't really touch Raze too much. As well as like, I think all these B tier agents shouldn't really be touched. Maybe Omen give his one ways back and nerf some other aspects about his kit. Um, Killjoy, I think, could use maybe a little bit of a buff just within the Sentinel role, but I still think she's pretty good. Um, and yeah, I wouldn't change Jet. I wouldn't change any of these other agents. Yeah, I think they're all in pretty good spots. Um, then we're actually on to our initiators now, which I mean we've only really placed I think two of them here in Fade and Sky. So I'm just gonna put them all here, all three of them that are in this tier. We have Breach at the bottom. Can we please just work? There we go. Then I have KO. Then I have Gecko. Um, I think Breach is at the bottom of this grouping here, strictly because he doesn't have any info. But with his pairing with Neon on maps like Haven, on maps like even Split and Sunset, I think he's just too good to not put in this A tier right now. I think in some other metas, he's definitely more of like a B C tier agent just because of that lack of info utility. But like, I still think you can play him on maps like Bind. I think Abyss, he's a little bit overplayed right here. Um, I mean, I think he can find some play on Pearl a little bit. I think he's kind of underrated there. But yeah, just, I mean, a really, really good agent for this specific meta. Again, if we drift more into some other kinds of metas with like more slow paced and like mid round info utility heavy, then I think he'll get phased out. Maybe like more like if we get more solo initiator stuff, I think he definitely will get phased out a lot more. Then KO, which I think is kind of like the next step up after Breach with more info utility, but maybe less exec utility. Like a little bit less exec utility, way more info. I mean, you play him 100% of the time on Ascent, no matter what. Pearl, I think he's pretty good. I think you could play him on maps like Split and Bind. I wouldn't really, and Haven as well, kind of goes in there. Abyss, I think he's really strong. Sunset, I think he's really strong. Um, he had a 0% pick rate. He like neither team picked him when it was played in Red Bull, but like NRG played it alongside a Breach, which was kind of interesting to see. It wasn't even like super exec heavy. They did like a lot of mid rounding too, which is, I mean, obviously what you expect out of NRG, but maybe not what you expect out of that comp, which is kind of interesting. So I don't know. Just a really solid agent there. And then Gecko, I think might be a little bit overrated here by me in this list. Let me go back to the Red Bull. Where Gecko was literally only played on Bind in Red Bull Homeground, but I think he can see a little bit of play on Haven if you want to play him like alongside the Sova instead of the Breach. But I think with this Neon meta, the Breach is still a little bit better. Abyss, not really. I think he is actually really strong on Pearl. Ascent, no. Split, I think he's really good on. Sunset, I also think he's really good on. Um, I think like the rechargeable utility in that like 10-second window is really good. Specifically on maps like Bind, where you're able to like push out, pick it up, and then run back, kind of thing, and then have it back up by the time you get back. I think is pretty good. I think he'll end up being pretty good on maps like Fracture when they come back out. He was already pretty decent on Lotus. Like I think you'll see quite a bit of Gecko next year, and when it's played, he'll be very good. Uh, then last up here, I think we're all familiar with it over the past couple of years. I think I'm going to put Viper at the top of A tier. Definitely not in the most dominant spot comparatively to where she was, only really being played on Bind, maybe a little bit on Abyss. I think can be played a little bit on Pearl. I mean, Split obviously should be a lot higher than it is than in this one game. Like teams had a 29% attack side win rate without the Viper. I think playing more Viper would potentially lean into that. Obviously, it was this one game of Split, so it's not like it's a huge sample size. But yeah, I think definitely Viper should be pick on Split as well as Bind. I think Abyss, when you're not playing like double controller with Omen Astra, which I think is going to be a little bit less prevalent now with the Omen nerfs. I think I think like Astra Viper, I think could be very good at, or Omen Viper could also be very good. Haven, I still think she's viable on. I'm not obviously picking her for against these neon comps. I think they're just too fast to get by that Viper utility, which I think is a big issue with Viper right now. And alongside the fact that like Breeze and Icebox aren't in the pool or anything like that, which are for like 100% pick rate map. So when you take those out and you have this kind of super fast meta, I think Viper kind of is in a bit more of a rough spot pick rate wise, but I still think the agent in theory and like when you do play her in these comps is still very strong. So I will keep her at least in this A tier where I think she belongs. Then our last tier here, S tier, where we have Neon, Astra, and Sova. So I won't waste too much time. Neon S tier needs to be nerfed. I don't think I need to talk about this. If you're watching this video, you know the state of Neon. If you argue in the comments, I'm going to block your comment. That's a joke. I don't block comments unless you're being an idiot on purpose. So, yeah, I just think she's really overpowered. Then Astra, who I think the 5 stars is still a little too strong. I'd like to see them move back down to 4 and then revert the suck changes. I think that would be a more balanced version of Astra. Now, as somebody who loves Astra gameplay, I am so down for this. Never touch this agent. Honestly, revert the suck changes and add a 6 star. This agent isn't good enough. Um, I think that'd be really good changes to Astra. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below about that one. Um, yeah, I don't know. I like where Astra's at as an Astro enthusiast, but as somebody who is a fan of the game, obviously still a little bit strong. I think you can argue to play her on literally every map in the game right now, probably. What map wouldn't you play her on? You'd play Haven, probably I'd lean. I mean, obviously in the Omen conversation, I kind of leaned Omen a little bit more, but like Haven, Sunset, Bind, Split, Ascent, Pearl, and Abyss. Yeah, I'd potentially play her on all of those maps. And yeah, I mean, just really strong. And then Sova at the bottom of this S tier, I still think also could use a nerf. Is played on almost every Haven game. Should be played on almost every Sunset game. I think you can play some other stuff in there. Uh, Bind and Split, obviously zeros across the board and pick rates there. I think that's pretty good. Astra are pretty good in terms of like that's correct. Ascent, 100%, no doubt in my mind. Pearl, I I think should be one of the most picked agents on that map. Honestly, uh, I think he's very strong there as well. I think you probably play him like double initiator there, but you can still play him solo in like these like double senti comps. Again, I've probably just described my whole Pearl comp here and spoiled it, but also on Abyss, 100% pick rate, no doubt in my mind, best initiator there. So yeah, let me know what you guys think of this tier list in the comments below. I think there's some takes that people won't like in here, but overall, I think it's a pretty solid list. So yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.